Hi, friends. Do you ever just look in the mirror and get disgusted? Not because you're ugly or anything, all my viewers are very attractive, but because you have so much darn useless flesh. Blech. Well, if so, one, you're a freak and you should get yourself checked, and two, you'll love the Adeptus Mechanicus. Or, I guess also the Iron Hands, but let's be honest, no one loves the Iron Hands, and they don't have any epic video games, so today we're talking about the Mechanicus. The Adeptus Mechanicus are one of the most, if not the most important branches of the Imperium of Man. By design, each branch of the Imperium fulfills an ultra-specific role so that no one Adepta can pull a heresy like the Astartes did long ago. The Adeptus Mechanicus manufactures and develops all of the Imperium's technology. Their importance affords them extra liberties such as having their own military, gasp, the freedom to innovate a little, double gasp, and religious freedom, triple gasp. But how did the Mechanicus get to this spot? Well, it all started on Mars. In the Dark Age of technology, Terra and Mars were two separate but allied empires, with Mars being a technological and manufacturing hub as the first Forge world in the galaxy. The Martians sent explorer fleets to establish new Forge worlds throughout the galaxy. However, the Age of Strife would introduce some strife to this age of prosperity, and in these trying times, the Martians turned to radical means of survival and created the Cult Mechanicus. The Cult Mechanicus wholly worshipped the machine god, and their devotion to their technology was the only way to survive the rad storms of Mars, rogue men of iron, and other wacky, strifey things that gave the age its name. During this age, many Martians died, their planet was ravaged, and much of their tech was lost or corrupted by the abominable intelligence. Not unlike how art databases and YouTube is currently being corrupted by AI dogshit. Like, at least 40k AI was cool robots with guns. Our AI are just sad grifts and overly smooth eyesores. However, moving off of that, the tech priest and cultists survived the whole ordeal and became even more devoted to the machine god since they felt they had witnessed his divine protection in the Age of Strife. So, after the Age of Strife, the Mechanicus created the Temple of All Knowledge, which was a fortified temple to store all their technical knowledge, and it is psychically connected to all other Mechanicus temples. Once their empire was reestablished, the Mechanicus scoured the galaxy searching for their lost STCs, which are basically blueprints for their tech, and the search continues to this day. In addition to their excavations, the Mechanicus became enemies to their former allies due to a series of techno-barbaric actions from the techno-barbarians of Terra. They would, however, mend their ties with Terra and become a part of the Imperium once the Emperor claimed the world for his own. The Emperor recognized the importance of the Mechanicus' technical knowledge and industrial might, so he sought to ally with them early in the Great Crusade. So, he went to Mars, performed some techno miracles, and convinced the Mechanicum that he was indeed the Omnissiah. And for some context, the Omnissiah is avatar of the machine god, so the Mechanicus technically has their own religion, but they also technically worship the Emperor just like the rest of the Imperium. But this little ploy goes a bit deeper as the Emperor sowed the seeds of his worship long before the Great Crusade. In the medieval times, the Emperor fought and captured the Dragon of Mars in Libya, when it was presumably not called the Dragon of Mars. Perhaps it was the Dragon of the Earth, considering its location and naming scheme. But we're unsure of that. Then, sometime after defeating the beast, the Emperor imprisoned it on Mars, and the dragon would influence the development of the Martian Empire into the Cult Mechanicus to fit the Emperor's grand plan. It was also theorized that the dragon is a shard of the Void Dragon Catan, but we don't know that for sure. It is a cool theory, though. And notably, just because the Mechanicus are very special little boys, unlike basically everyone else who joined the Imperium, the Emperor didn't make the Mechanicus give up their religion, even though worshipping the Emperor was a big no-no at the time. Anyways, the Imperium of Man provided protection and navigators to the Mechanicum, and the Mechanicum technically retained their sovereignty at the time. Their powerful weaponry proved invaluable in the Great Crusade, but just like all other forces of the Imperium, the Mechanicum became split in the Horus Heresy as some tech priests and Forge Worlds stood by Horus and his Horus Heresy. However, the general second in command sided with the Imperium and caused the Mechanicus to split into the Mechanicum and the Dark Mechanicum. Woo! So, in order to keep the Mechanicum with the Imperium, the Council of Terra officially created the Adeptus Mechanicus as a compromise. While the Imperials initially feared the creation of the new Adepta would give the Martians too much power, it would actually eventually play in their favor as it led the Mechanicus to becoming inherently tied to the Imperium far more than mere allies, and they're now basically the same entity and are almost completely codependent. But using my techno remote augment, let's fast forward 10,000 years into the Warhammer of the 40k variety. In 40k, the Mechanicus are basically up to the same shenanigans, searching for lost STCs, researching and gathering an acceptable amount of knowledge, and making stuff. Over the years, they've lost a lot of knowledge regarding tech due to the strict dogmas of the cult Mechanicus. Speaking of which, let's talk about the beliefs of the cult Mechanicus. The cult Mechanicus is made of tech priests who worship the machine god, and also the Emperor since he's the Omnissiah, and that's one component of the machine god trinity. The final component being the motive force, which I think is just electricity, but they don't know that, so that's kind of funny. But anyways, technically, the Emperor is techno machine Jesus to the Mechanicus, which is pretty rad. Also, I should have said this before, but the tech priests are just scientists and religious leaders of the cult Mechanicus, and they heavily augment themselves with cybernetics to live up to their religious beliefs. The most prolific of tech priests have hardly any biological parts left and are more machine than man. The tech priests also believe knowledge to be divine, as such, they constantly seek to recover knowledge. However, at the same time, they're also very strict about not innovating or researching too much, since in the world of 40k, innovation does not simply excite, it can also invite. Invite the forces of hell, that is. Ooh. And as I've mentioned before, the Mechanicum was able to survive the Age of Strife and Heresy by sticking to their guns, literally and figuratively. So now they limit their innovation and research to prevent dangerous tech, like the Men of Iron, to arise again or to avoid trickery from the forces of chaos. Therefore, those who get a bit too wacky innovating or researching in banned fields are declared heretics, with the appropriately themed misspelling. These heretics are quickly outed by the Mechanicus. Outed, of course, meaning getting peppered with rad weaponry and launched into the sun or something. But back to the worship of knowledge. The Mechanicus believe that life is only valuable as a vessel of knowledge. Expanding on that, they believe that the machine god created humans with the weakness of the flesh in order to give them the challenge of overcoming it with the strength and certainty of steel. Thus, as I've said before, members of the Mechanicus are constantly replacing parts of themselves with mechanical upgrades. However, they do value soul, and only think that physical attributes are to be replaced. This is actually quite interesting to me because some Mechanicus characters can certainly seem soulless, but no matter the insane levels of augment, they are still human beneath all that steel. It's also funny because they can flex on the other famous mechanical faction with their epic souls and such. But finally, the last notable part of the religion is the idea of the machine spirit. The Mechanicus and many other Imperials at this point believe, as the name suggests, the machine spirit is the spirit a machine has. They also believe that they must perform certain rituals to appease the machine spirit and keep their technology operable. Now, the most interesting thing to me about the machine spirit is the ambiguity behind it. On one hand, the Mechanicus rituals meant to please the machine spirits could just be regular maintenance and operating procedures. The theory behind this is that these procedures were made into a religion since religious dogma would outlast mere instruction manuals and whatnot. But, on the other hand, there is a very real possibility that the machine spirit is a real thing and that every Imperial machine is in fact possessed by an actual literal spirit, which is super cool. Usually bigger or more important machines like Titans have stronger machine spirits, but even the humble Lasgun is said to have its own spirit. And there are actual instances of the machine spirit manifesting. There have been Titans fighting on long after their pilots had perished, or a funny one is a Crimson Fist Land Raider luring some orcs into itself and then overloading. Yeah, Freaky Land Raider is canon. This spirit likes big, muscly green guys inside of it so it can blow its power load. Jonkles aside though, this was unironically a really cool moment, and all of Rin's world is actually pretty cool. Crimson Fists are for real better than Imperial Fisting. You can find me on that. Back to the Mechanicus though, it's even possible that both of these are true. In 40k, belief often does produce tangible things in the world, so it very well could have started off as operating procedures and then turned into actual spirits as so many people started believing in it. But using my techno segue augment, I will now segue us to the next topic, notable Mechanicus units, starting off with the Castellan robots, who have a very special variant controlled by powerful machine spirits. The ordinary Castellan robots are giant ancient robots fitted with either phosphor or incendiary combustors, basically scary incendiary weapon or scary incendiary weapons. In addition to the big old gun, they also have dual power fists and highly resilient armor. Their only real weakness is that they're robots and they're bound by their programming of their datasmith. So, if they aren't monitored, they could just like walk off a cliff or something. Think that scene in The Office when Michael drove into a lake. Except instead of his luxury sedan, it's a giant ancient robot with mega weapons. Then, a special variant I mentioned earlier are the itinerants. Itinerants? I don't know how to say that, but if I had to pick, I'd certainly pick a tit over ants. Itinerants are even more ancient Castellan robots that roam the galaxy in warbands and randomly help Mechanicus forces in needs. They're guided by their machine spirit and they're only obedient in battle. Afterwards, they just kind of mysteriously disappear. So they're basically the Legion of the Damned, but for techno nerds. But next up, we should touch on the Legionis Astartes. This is the Legionis Astartes. Sorry fellas, Space Marine infiltrators took over this Mechanicus video. What I meant to say was the Legionis Scutari. This is the Mechanicus' military force and is predominantly made up of, you guessed it, Scutari. But what the hey are even Scutari, you may ask? And if you did, they're the mechanically augmented soldiers of the Mechanicus. On recruitment, they get their legs cut off to make way for robo-legs. And they get their eyelids removed so they can constantly analyze data with their robo-eyes. Yeah, those cute little goggles that they have are actually just hiding their disgusting, freakish, eyelidless faces. Ew. And just like the rest of the Mechanicus, as they rise in ranks, they're afforded more augments. These augments make them very efficient soldiers, as they on average have better dexterity, endurance, and resolve than the typical guardsman, a standard Scutari being somewhere between a guardsman and a stormtrooper. The most famous Skitarii types are the Rangers, Vanguards, and the Sicarians. Quickly, the Rangers are master marksmen who hunt whatever foe they're sent against. Their bionics are designed to afford maximum endurance for their hunts, so basically they're just human hunter maxing. Their primary weapons are galvanic rifles, which look like old-timey muskets, but are actually very deadly and precise magic sci-fi space guns. Then, the Vanguards are the shock troops of the Skitarii and are chock full of radiation and use radium carbines. They sport heavy armor to protect from both enemy fire and their own radiation. These fellas are often dropped into a critical objective and then they just kill everything with their war crime guns and sheer aura. And by aura I mean they're literally so radioactive you will die. Next up are my favorites, second favorites, the Sicarians. Sicarians are some of the coolest dudes ever. These are Skitarii who were super injured in battle and got the blessing of being even more cybernetically augmented. Usually they're just a torso and a head with a crap load of cybernetics. The Skitarians are basically the luckiest dudes ever in the Mechanicus' eye. They're super fast and deadly with their cybernetics, and they are revered warriors to the cult. And these fellas got two variants. The Skitarii who kept their minds or are especially tactical are made into infiltrators, and as their name suggests, they infiltrate and scout. Their little R2-D2 heads have a 360-degree sensory array for ultra awareness, and it constantly emits a disorienting frequency and kills your cell service. They're also equipped with power swords, SMGs, and flechette blasters to cut up and shoot up whatever falls in their warpath. Also, this isn't just a hat, it's literally a part of their head that got removed and replaced with a freaky little dome, so, yuck department much? But some Skitarii don't keep their wits about them after having most of their body destroyed and getting robocopped. These Skitarii are called losers. Rust Stalkers. And these ones actually aren't losers. In fact, they're the coolest Mechanicus unit, period, to me. These Sicarians went kinda nutty from their operation and are possessed by not only insanity, but also craziness. Their primary purpose was to be elite hit squads, utilizing their bloodlust for brutal assassinations. However, they proved so gosh darn good at killing things that they were later utilized as frontline shock troops. These dudes are basically mini General Grievuses, often carrying two transonic blades as they skitter around the battlefield like ninja blenders with legs. 2 legs, in fact. And swords! 2 swords, in fact. Literally the coolest shit ever. But finally, we have the #1 best Mechanicus unit ever, and perhaps the best unit of all time. The unit you've all been waiting for. Give it up for the Sidonian Skractos! Whoa! But with my lovely stilted snipers, that's the Mechanicus. These dudes are a super cool component of 40k and are pretty badass. Their ultra super data analysis skills makes them a super formidable opponent. Once they know your tactics, they're near unbeatable with their Skitarii armies and insano tech. These little dudes add so much to the lore of the Imperium and are an integral part of the setting. Also, the conundrum of wanting to constantly learn more and gather all the knowledge while practicing a religion of stagnation is extremely interesting, especially since their fear of innovation is pretty justified in the world of 40k. I also like how inhuman they are. Most of their weapons are very inhumane, and their most revered of the ranks are basically organ bags with robo legs. It's a cool contrast to my usual love for the more human factions, kind of the darkness that accentuates the light. But finally, the Mechanicus are legitimately funny in some of their appearances. I think it's funny that they're little weirdos that no one likes, or just like robot young Sheldons who cannot comprehend the stupidity of their peers. And aside from their actual lore, which I find pretty funny, their memes are also one of the few 40k memes that I actually like. Some do flanderize them into toaster files, but even those are kind of funny to me. Also, sometimes they're ignorant, dumb heads, which leads them to funny moments like the famous science's Goldilocks principle. Oh, also, a lot of them are vat grown freak babies. I didn't know where to mention that, but here it is. Also, I did not forget to mention Call. I'll cover him in the future. If you comment that I forgot him, I will send my Rust Stalker buddies on you. But anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you to the Patreons who help support the channel immensely. And thank you to all those who sent me cool stuff in the P.O. box. I've already received some cool things from some awesome fans, so I'm going to do a stream to go over those and thank you guys more personally, so look out for that. Also, if you don't want me to share your name, please comment if you're hearing this. Otherwise, I'll just do the first name just so I don't like dox you. And as always, please like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing to all your robo cybernetically augmented toaster freaks. Thanks. Also, I do unironically like the stilt sniper. It's just so fucking dumb. I love him.